Hello, so in this tutorial I will explain to you how to work with the SQL tab inside of the Advanced Workspace. So let's log in our framework and choosing the Advanced Workspace. After that we need to show the advanced items so we can see the SQL tab, so this tab here. So this will be the focus of our tutorial. So what is this tab? This tab is the data access layer tab. You can read more about the layers in our documentation, but basically in here it contains all the data access layers and the correspondent files inside of each layer. So currently if we go to our manage layers, to our layers diagram, we can see that we have two data access layers, one calls IORN and other one calls HORN. The IORN is specifically for the iBatish and the HORN it is specifically for the hibernate. So IORN and HORN, so we have here two layers. If we expand both, we can see the correspondent files inside of each layer. So if we click in the menu of the layers, we can add a new folder inside of this layer here. We can paste some folder that we had copied before, we can download this specific folder, or we can refresh the sub files. The same thing in the IORN layer, exactly the same menus options. Now then we have inside of each layer, I can see that I have some files that they are the same. So I have the common, I have the module, I have the program, and I have the resource. So both layers have these folders, so these folders are reserved folders. So the common, it's where you can put in the HORN, you can put hibernate objects or other components to be shared across multiple different projects. The same thing in the IORN, where you can put different components, mainly data access rules that you can reuse in multiple different projects. Then the module folder is for the modules that we have installed in our framework. So if we go to tools and manage models, we can see all the modules that we currently have installed, which are all of these. In the previous tutorials I show you how to install modules. So if we expand this, we'll see all the correspondent files inside of each module. Then we have the program folder, which currently is empty. It's which will contain the correspondent information when we install programs. So our tool allows us to install a program, getting the program from our store and install it in a specific project. And then if that project has some hibernate layer or some iBatish layer, it will copy the correspondent files to this correspondent folder, the program folder. If you want to know more about programs, you can see our other tutorials, or you can, to install is very simple. You just go to tools, click install a program, and in here it will load all the programs that we currently have in our store. Okay, then we have the resources. The resources is basically some files that the system creates automatically when you are creating pages in the presentation layer, and some of these files can be reusable through other projects too. And then basically you see other file, which is the my first project too, in both layers, which basically responds to the current project that we have here created. So basically every time that you create a project, it will add a subfolder in each layer too. Our recommendation is that the files correspondent for that project you put inside of this subfolder here with the same name. So all the files related with each project be organized inside of each folder. Okay, so then if you go to the commons menu folder, you have a bunch of options here, but basically most of them they are very similar with the other folders. Let me just show you here the two different ones. So the modules, the module folder has a different menu, which basically only allows you to download the folder and to manage the modules, which basically is that other page that I show you, to manage the modules, to see the modules that we currently have installed, and to edit them, to disable them, and other actions. Okay, then all the other folders, basically you can create other subfolders, you can add files, you can add, in this case, since we are in the Hibernate, we can add an Hibernate objects, or we can create that, well, when I say add object, is add object manually, or we can create the objects automatically, or we can cut and copy and paste, or remove, or rename, or zip, or upload, or download a folder or a file, or refresh the corresponding contents and see the properties. So basically all the files and subfolders have a similar menu. In the iHorn is like the same thing, menus, similar, but in here you don't have the create Hibernate objects, you have the create queries automatically. Basically we can just do an example here. Let's just create some queries automatically so you can see what happens. So let's just create like one. This is in the Hibernate, so basically it creates automatically the XML file and then the corresponding objects, and then if we open the objects we'll see the relationships inside of that object. If we do the same thing for the iBatis layer, it will basically create the XML file and then with the corresponding queries inside of that file, as you can see here. So the Hibernate, the file, we can manage the includes, well, we can edit directly that specific file, we can add other objects. I can show you. If you click add objects, basically it is the same thing, then click here, which is to edit a specific Hibernate object, or you can edit directly the XML file, or you can manage the corresponding includes that exist in this XML file. So basically you can have some others XML file in some other folder, or in this same folder with some components, and then include that specific components inside of this file, inside of a specific part, and then take advantage of that components and include it in some objects. Let's say that I have some result maps or parameter maps in some other files, so then I just include a file here in this school object, and then I use that result maps and parameters maps in my school objects as a result map and as a parameter map, instead of being duplicating codes in this object too. So I can put that maps inside, or maps or queries or other components inside of other files, and then include them in the Hibernate object, so I don't have duplicated codes. So I can create objects automatically too inside of the specific file, and then I have all a bunch of other options related with the file specifically. With the Hibernate objects, I can add a query inside of this specific object. I can add a new relationship. Currently we have two. I can add a parameter map, we don't have any, or a result map, or I can edit this specific object, or I can remove it. So the edit is the same thing, then I click in the object. So if we show the advanced settings, we have a tutorial that basically explains all of this. Let's just create some queries automatically with maps, so you can see in here what happened. Okay, it's done. Okay, it's saved by default. So if I refresh this guy here, when I expand, I should see that now I have relationships, I have maps, and I have queries. Okay, so then related with the relationships, I can edit, remove, or see the corresponding properties. If I click edit, it will open the UI to edit this specific relationship. In this case, it's a one-to-many relationship with his name. If I click in the maps, it will open a UI to edit this specific map, which is the same thing, then clicking here, and the same thing for the queries. If I click it, or if I click in edits, is exactly the same thing. If I click properties, I'll see the properties of the corresponding file of this query. This is related with the Hibernate layer. If I go to the Advanced layer, we have a file here where basically the same thing. I can manage the includes, I can edit the files, I can add the parameters map, the result maps, add a new query, add the queries automatically for this specific file, or all the other actions related with the file itself. Then if I expand it, I will see all the queries that exist in here, and each query has I can add it individually. So if by clicking it or by going to the menu and clicking the edit menu. If I click in the school or in the edit file menu here, exactly the same thing, I'll be able to edit the corresponding XML file. Basically what our framework does is it reads the XML file, it knows that has a bunch of queries and present them in a user-friendly way with no code editors in a visual environment. So if I click in some queries, automatically it shows me here a visual environment where I can edit that specific query, and then if I save it, automatically it updates this XML file. The same thing for the Hibernate. So if I go to the Hibernate, I see some XML file with a bunch of nodes, but if I don't know the correct syntax, I have here basically an UI that allows me to manage that XML file through a no-code editor, to a visual environment, just by clicking in the specific fields. This is just an example. Okay, and I believe that's it. So I explained basically most of the files and the file types and the options that the data access layers have, Hibernate or in Hibernate. One more thing, so in here, so in the Hibernate we see the maps currently, in the Hibernate we don't see any, but if we click like to create new queries with maps, I can see the maps already. So let's recreate this, let's include some parameter maps, and automatically if I refresh this guy, I should see already the maps here. This same action could be achievable if I do it this manually. If I just click add parameter map and then I just needed to fill all these fields here. Instead of that, I do this automatically just to be faster. So if I click in one of the maps, I'll edit the correspondent map. And that's it. So thank you very much.